Moving on with the test, in this video, we got to factor all four of these expressions here. So starting off with number 1, I'm going to rewrite it over here. We got 2x squared minus 15x plus 7. So this is just a regular trinomial. We got to do it by decomposition. So we would multiply the a and the c together. 2 times 7 gives us 14, and then the b value is negative 15. So what two numbers multiplied to 14 add up to negative 15? Well, negative 14, negative 1. So we would decompose that middle term to minus 14x minus 1x plus 7. The end terms stayed the same. The middle term we decomposed to these two numbers. And now we factor by grouping. So what can we take out of these two here? We could take out a 2x, so we'd be left with x minus 7. Then from here we could take out a negative 1, and we're left with x minus 7. So these brackets are the same. The brackets should always be the same if you're doing decomposition. If they're not, then something went wrong before in one of the previous steps. So here you could take out an x minus 7. You're left with 2x minus 1, like that. So that is what this factors to. So x minus 7 bracket 2x minus 1. That is the answer. Okay, moving on to number 2. We got x squared minus 12x plus 36 minus 121y squared. So let me rewrite that. X squared minus 12x plus 36 minus 121y squared. So hopefully by this point you realize that this is 3 by 1 factoring. If you're not sure what that means, I highly recommend you watch the lecture videos before continuing further, because I go into a lot more detail about how to recognize these types of factoring. 3 by 1 factoring, 1 by 3 factoring. Basically it happens whenever you have a perfect square trinomial like this. So this, if we factored it with decomposition, what this would factor to is x minus 6 squared, and you'd have minus 121y squared. That's why it's called 3 by 1. These three terms, you got to factor themselves, and then this term you leave by itself. And then over here, notice that this is a difference of squares. If you remember a difference of squares, in general, a squared minus b squared is equal to a minus b, a plus b. So this is like a squared minus b squared. So we would have two brackets here. And what's the square root of x minus 6 squared? Well, it's just x minus 6. So we could put that in brackets actually. And then what is the square root of 121y squared? Well, it's just 11y. So here we would do minus 11y, here we would do plus 11y. Right? So a minus b, a plus b. We're following that right there. And then you just simplify. And here we can just get rid of this bracket because there's like a 1 in front. Both of these brackets have like a 1 in front. And that is simply the answer right there. That's what it factors to. So we got x minus 6 minus 11y and x minus 6 plus 11y. And then moving on to number 3, I wrote it up there. So we got 3 minus 27 bracket x plus y squared. So from here, this looks really similar to that step from number 2, where we had the x minus 6 squared minus 121y squared. So you would think this is a difference of squares, but notice square root of 3, that is not very smooth. Square root of 27, that is not smooth either. So what's going on here? Well, what do we do with factoring always initially before going into any of the strategies, whether decomposition, difference of squares, 3 by 1, 1 by 3, etc., etc. You always look, can you take anything out from all of the terms? So notice initially for 1 and 2, we couldn't take anything out. But here, notice that we could take out a 3 from here, and we could take out a 3 from there. So if we take out a 3, what we're left with is 1 minus 9 bracket x plus y squared. We factored out a 3 from both of these. So 3 divided by 3, 1. 27 divided by 3 is 9. And then here, notice that this is a difference of squares. So we still have the 3 in front, and then we would have square root of 1 is 1, and we'd be subtracting the square root of this, which would be 3 bracket x plus y. Right? Square root of 9 is 3, square root of x plus y squared is just x plus y. And then we'd have to do 1 plus 3 bracket x plus y. Right? Does that make sense? So first we took out a 3, and then this here is a difference of squares. Square root of 1 is that, square root of this term is that. So it's like a minus b, a plus b. Right? So you always want to be looking for stuff you could take out initially. A lot of times they'll give you questions like this where first you have to take something out and then it becomes factorable, whether as a difference of squares or whatever strategy you're using. Then from here we just have to simplify these brackets. So distributing the negative 3 inside the bracket, we'll have 1 minus 3x minus 3y. And this here would be 1 plus 3x plus 3y. Done. So this factors to 3, 1 minus 3x minus 3y, and then 1 plus 3x plus 3y. You can also check your answers with these. So you can actually like take all of this, expand it, expand all of that, and you should get the same term. And then finally, number 4, rewrote up there, we got 4y squared plus 4y plus 1 minus 9x squared plus 12x minus 4. So this one is a little bit tougher. So multiple ways to do this, but if you notice, we got 2 perfect square trinomials here. So we'd have to factor out a negative here. If you remember 1 by 3 factoring from the lecture videos, there's usually a negative here. We have to factor it out from all 3 terms here. But then we have these 3 terms as well. So what I'm going to do, I'm actually going to rewrite these 3 terms first, and then take out a negative from these 3. So basically all of these signs change. And then I'm going to factor this and factor that. Both are perfect square trinomials. This would be 2y plus 1 squared, and this would be 3x minus 2 squared. Okay, and then notice how this is a difference of squares. So we would have 2 brackets. So square root of this is just 2y plus 1. Square root of this is just 3x minus 2. You got to make sure you put that all in brackets. And here, same thing, 2y plus 1, but we would be adding now. Right, so a minus b, a plus b. And then from here, you just simply collect all the like terms. So we would have to distribute, simplify. So we would end up having 2y minus 3x. This would become positive 2. Positive 1 plus 2 gives us 3. Like that. And then here we would have 2y plus 3x. And this would be 1 minus 2, which would give us negative 1. Right, so that there is the answer. 2y minus 3x plus 3, and then 2y plus 3x minus 1. So this one was, it was fairly unique.